Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the newly released Pan-Asian Tier 10 Light Cruiser Jinan import to review for you guys today. Again, this is the top of the Pan-Asian cruiser line right now. Essentially a Chinese Austin, if you will, although there are of course several key differences between the Jinan and the Austin. But this is a ship that I've been pretty interested in, especially given how I've seen the Austin perform in clan battles and of course in tier 10 random battles and such. So we're going to take a look at the Jinan today, go over her quirks and features, and then give you guys my 2 cents on her as my first impression for playing her for probably about 2 or so hours today, and see if she's, in my opinion, worth it upon the first impressions at least. Now, I have played quite a bit of the Dalian, which is the Tier 9 Pan-Asian Premium Cruiser, which is kind of like a Son of Small Links deal. Whoops, didn't mean to open up that up. So the Jinan, it's, I'm expecting it to play fairly similar to an American light cruiser, since it is, of course, again, based upon the Austin, but however, she does have deep water torpedoes, and we'll get into all of that here quite soon. I do wonder, though, can we switch the flag? Oh, we can! So it's, okay, interesting. She's apparently belonging to Taiwan. Huh. And I think the Dalian has the People's Liberation Navy flag on. It sure does. That's interesting. Especially given that the game is I don't think it has yet. I think they're still gearing up for it. About to release in China. Okay. Interesting. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Jinan. So the armor layout, again, it is a light cruiser, 16mm bow, 32mm side plate right there. That's interesting. 32mm upper belt across the back. Citadel armor is 95mm. Stern is 16. I do wonder, can we take a peek, at the Austin and see how the armor compares? Again, I don't have it, but I do believe you can now at least take a look at them in port. Can we look at the armor? Yes, we can. Okay, 16, 32, 95. Okay, cool. It does. Alright, so that 32mm mid upper belt, I should say, that's going to be pretty useful in bouncing shells if you stay angled enough. Alright, let's go ahead and strip away the armor. Take a look at her citadel. It is very exposed, just like, again, with the Austin. So, yeah, the Austin's kind of a funny cruiser. You know, from the bow end, it's beyond easy to citadel, of course, but from the side end, you know, you got 32 if you're not going up against 18-inch guns or 20-inch guns. You should be able to bounce it if you angle enough. Alright, 30,700 hit points, a 4% torpedo damage reduction, and she does have 10 of the 127mm Austin guns, although she does not have the nutty reload booster of the Austin, and these are similar to the Forrest Sherman's guns as well, except the Forrest Sherman has single mount guns, but unfortunately they don't share the same insane fire rate of the Forrest Sherman, although it's pretty low, 3.5 seconds. 180 turn time of 4.5 seconds as well. I do believe these 360, I think, I'm pretty sure the rear ones do. I do believe these two do. I don't know about that one though. Haven't noticed that one just yet. Alright, so she gets HE and AP, no sap here. Maximum HE damage is 1800 per shell. 9% chance of causing a fire on target. That's pretty good. 21mm of HE pin base. 808 meters a second flight time. AP shell does a maximum damage of 2100. And they come out the tubes too at 808 meters a second. Base main firing range of 14.5 kilometers. Alright. And I'm going to assume that this probably has American shell arcs and flight time as well. Actually, what shell does it fire? Yeah, HE Mark 41. Yeah, that's the American shell. Alright. Torpedoes, like I mentioned, she does get deep water torps. They can only hit cruisers and on up. I do wonder if there's like the 1 or 2 light cruisers that are excluded from deep water torpedoes, if that does still apply here to the Jinan. But anyway, they have a 13.5 kilometer range. You get 4x5, which is quite a lot. You do get the torpedo reload booster, I do believe, as well. They do 17,900 maximum damage. They travel at 69 knots, and they are detectable from 0.8 kilometers. Quite stealthy torps, indeed. And I've seen quite some meme things being done with like a Jinan division. AA has an A rating of 89 base, which is pretty good. It should be, again, fairly similar to the Austin's AA, which is quite terrifying. And the main guns are dual purpose. And you do have some secondary... actually, are those secondaries? Or are they just AA guns? So you get 5x2 of those. And then we get... Oh yeah, sure enough, they are just... additional guns on the side that don't count as main battery guns. Alright. Maneuverability, she goes 35 knots base, turning circle radius of 670 meters, and a rudder shift time of 7.7 seconds. Concealment, she has a base concealment range of 12.1 kilometers. Alright, so let's go take a look at her box O gimmicks. Alright, so she gets a heal. This is not the super heal that the Austin gets. It repairs 153 hit points per second, is active for 28 seconds, reloads in 80 seconds, you can get 3 charges of it base. And here is the torpedo reload booster. So it reduces the torpedo reload time, it reduces it down to 8 seconds, is active for 1 second, and recharges in 300 seconds, you get 2 charges base. You also get DFAA, and you get a smoke screen. Is active for 30 seconds, disperses in 70 seconds, has a radius of 0.45 kilometers, and it reloads in 110 seconds. You get 3 charges of that base. And she actually gets depth charges. That's pretty interesting. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and throw a commander build on the Jinan, and I'll meet you guys right back here once that commander and modules have been equipped. Alrighty, so with the commander, I've got Darong, which is the same guy I was running on Dolly, and I've pretty much stuck with that build for the time being. I went with Last Stand, then Demolition Expert to get the chance of course, getting a fire up. Darong has an improved one, so you get 1.5% increase instead of just 1. Then I went with, well, quite a few 3-point skills. These seem to be the most useful ones, at least on the cruisers. Adrenaline Rush. Then for my first 4-point skill, Concealment. Going back up to the 2-point skills, I would grab Consumable Enhancements. Then either Superintendent or Survivability Expert. Come back down and then pick up whatever one I didn't pick. And then finally, Heavy HE and Sap Shells. And since this ship is below the 149mm gun threshold, there is no penalty to your detection range. So a fair bit of survivability and, of course, building into the main battery guns here. I would not take IFHE. I mean, again, this cuts your reload time. Not your reload time. Cuts your chance of having a fire in half. And with the high fire chance that the ship already has on these quite rapid-fiery guns, I think you're kind of killing the ship there. Now, also, for the module build, I went with Main Armaments Mod 1 to keep the main guns in the fight. Then I went with engine room protection. I mean, the ship has, of course, cruiser burn time, so there's no need to take damage con. If you really hate planes, you could take DFAA. I wouldn't really recommend it. I would go with the engine room protection. Now here I went with Aiming Systems Mod 1. You could go with Torpedo Tubes Mod 1 if you want to build into the torpedoes of the Jinan, which it's one of the few cruisers that I think actually warrants a build if you want to do it. But for now, we're going to run with the guns because me, myself, I haven't done too much with torpedo boats, so for someone like myself who's more used to gun boats and gun cruisers, we're going with the guns for now. Then I went with Propulsion Mod 1. This cuts the time it takes you to accelerate to full power in half. I think that's useful, especially for a cruiser that's going to be spending lots of time in smoke, and when smoke's not available, you have to be pretty good at juking, and this should help us with that. Then Concealment Mod 1. And then finally, Gunfire Control System Mod 2 to get the range out by an additional 16%. Now, I know it probably has the floaty HE American shells, but just the way that high tier goes now. 14.5 kilometers, really cutting it close on a cruiser that is this frail. Now, I'm not expecting to be shooting at maximum range the entire time, but 15 kilometers, 16 kilometers is a much more comfortable range for the ship. Especially ship this frail, again, in my opinion. So now, with Survivability Expert, our hit points are up to 35,700. Our gun range is now up to 16.8 kilometers. And our fire chance is up to 11.5%. I did throw on the fire flags too as well. So 11.5%, that's pretty good. Again, on a ship that's got 10 guns that reload in 3.5 seconds. Torpedoes, I don't think anything's messed with them. Still 13.5 kilometer range. A rating still at 89, even with the AA flag on. Maneuverability, we go 36.8 knots now with the speed flag. And our concealment is down to 9.8 kilometers. That's quite stealthy. I like that. Alright, we're going to go ahead and head into battle and meet you guys there with my voiceover first impressions of the Jinan. Alright guys, voiceover Mountbatten here. And the Jinan. Tier 10 Austin. Well, he has a Tier 10 Austin, no doubt. Tier 10 Atlanta that you don't have to pay steel for. Yeah, it's pretty good. So, the main thing that a lot of you are probably trying to compare this to is, of course, Austin, like even I did in the port section. And the Jinan's got something going for it that the Austin doesn't, in that it has a good, consistent reload time. Now, the Austin, of course, is famous for having its 75% main battery reload booster, where when you pop that, essentially you can get your main battery reload time down to about a second or so, depending upon what build you're running on the Austin. And it's great for that. I think it's active for like 10 or 15 seconds. It's great for a sudden, insane burst of DPM, but the rest of the time you're stuck with, I believe, an 8-second reload time on the Austin, which isn't really that good, even for a light destroyer armed with as many guns as the Austin and Jinan are armed with. It's not great at all. So Austin's mostly great for like, 15-second bursts where you can absolutely murder whatever cruiser, DD, or even battleship you run across, but for the rest of the game you're stuck with a pretty terrible reload time. So you have to capitalize very much so on individual player mistakes or individual moments during the match, which may not happen at all in some matches or often. So with that 3.5 second reload time on the Jinan, I'd say it's probably the better random battles, and I would say even better competitive ship because it's got that good, consistent DPM. And of course, the fire chance on the ship's actually really freaking good. 11.5% chance of starting a fire. This is one of the best, I should say, HE spammy ships that I've played at Tier 10, including the Smolensk, because of that 11.5% fire chance. Now, I know Smolensk has, let me double check here before I put my foot in my mouth, but I know Smolensk has a fairly similar fire chance, and I don't know if it's just me and my luck or what, but it always, when I'm playing Smolensk, even ships that, are known for being great HE spammers at Tier 10, 9%, yeah. So you get 2.5% more, but Smolensk does have 16 guns instead of 10 guns like the Jinan. But it sets fires a whole lot, way more than most other Tier 10 HE spammy ships, which you'll see pretty clearly in the background footage. This game was a loss, but it was a pretty decent match. It's one of the few matches that I had that actually went for quite some time, which is another point I was about to bring up. The matches I had with this ship, when I was allowed to have a match that lasted more than 10 or so minutes, easy peasy over 120k in the Jinan. Absolutely easy. For someone like me, who's not even that great of a light cruiser player. So in the hands of someone who's had a lot of experience with light cruisers, you could easily be north of 150,000 damage in games that will, of course, last long enough that and allow you to do that with the guns, of course, absolutely. But what really surprised me here is the torpedoes. The torpedoes were a pleasant surprise. I thought, okay, it's got deep water torpedoes. We've seen this before in several other high tier and even mid tier cruisers with deep water torps that they're kind of, one-off gimmicks that, sure, if you can use in the right situation, you'll net some nice damage. But with the Jinan and all the matches I played in her, I got a fair bit of damage with these deep water torpedoes, and they are very, very, very useful with that main battery reload booster. Again, you get 10 of these things per side, 20 in total with a reload booster. So that means if you really want to put some pain down range, you can get 40 torpedoes in the water with the Jinan. You fire one side off, turn around, fire the other side off, pop the reload booster, and then in 8 seconds you've got 20 more torpedoes ready to go. Talk about some absolute area denial in this ship, and you should see that get put to very, very, very good use here in the background footage. There's a moment where there's a Kremlin, one of the absolute best tier 10 battleships for tanking HE, which of course the Jinan is a main gun HE spammy ship. But when you shove frickin' 10 deepwater torpedoes down his throat, it's not a lot he can do about that, even though it is the Kremlin. And again, it's so freaking derpy with the absolute wall of deepwater torps you can throw down range with the Jinan. So that was a pleasant surprise to me too. But I mean, everything else about it feels like your normal light cruiser. It is very, very, very squishy, and most of the matches I had, except for this one, I was normally fine, and then some random salvo from a battleship, of course, knocks you for like 75% of your health. And in the case of this one, I dodged most of the torpedoes that get launched at me between a Shimakaze and I believe a Benham. I ate one, get down to pretty low health, but managed to survive that and play very cautiously for the rest of the match. But I mean, yeah, if you played a high-tier light cruiser, especially in the current meta with all the 18-inch and 20-inch guns with the super ships and like Incomparable and Shikishima that we're getting at higher tier now, you know what to expect here. The heal, again, it's not an Austin super heal, but it's enough that if you play cautiously and wisely enough, you'll be able to survive on it. The smoke screen is very useful, very, very, very useful. But another thing too with the Jinan, and talking about it in its smoke screen, it is an American cruiser, of course, base. So you have the catapults. You have the freaking catapults here, ladies and gentlemen. So you can absolutely hug your island waifu and just send these shells in a very low orbit around the map to hit your target. Now, they aren't as slow as some other American shells. They're not in the 700s, but they are in the very much the low 800s. So aiming isn't too bad at most of the ranges I was engaging at, which is like 15-ish kilometers. But when you're pushing it to that 16-8, almost 17-kilometer maximum range, you got to put some lead on it. But again, if you've played it like the Wooster and stuff, you pretty much know what to expect here from the Jinan. But it's a really darn good cruiser in my opinion, one that I do think is worth grinding. Now, that being said, the line itself from like the tier 6 to tier 8, it's freaking rough. I played those ships that we got in the early access period for the Pan Asian Cruiser event, and I'm not going to lie to you, it is a very rough grind, but this is a very, very, very nice light cruiser that's, again, available for free right now for everyone because the early access event is over, and now they're trying to gut your wallet with the Italian DD early access event. But I do think it's worth the grind, especially if you do enjoy light cruisers, and especially if you like the footage that you're seeing in the background here. And again, I don't see anyone with any level of familiarity with light cruisers having much problems doing easily 130, 140,000 damage in this ship per round if they know what they're doing. And again, you more experienced players out there, the sky's the limit with you guys. So I would give the Jinan an 8 out of 10. You get 10 127mm guns with a very good chance of starting a fire with Demolition Expert and Fire Flags equipped. You get 20 deep water torpedoes with the ability to turn that into 40 deep water torpedoes with the torpedo reload booster. You get a pretty darn good smoke screen, decent heal, and you have the catapult gun firing arcs for hugging islands, as well as DFAA and pretty decent AA. The only CV game I got in with the Jinan was a tier 8 CV. It didn't even go anywhere near me, but I mean, the thing's got a 90 AA rating and DFAA, so I can imagine it does have pretty decent AA if the CV doesn't even want to freaking go near you. The negatives being that it is, of course, extremely thinly armored and can get slapped from really random shots from across the map, especially with the proliferation of 18-inch and above guns that we have on battleships now at Tier 10. It's a little sluggish for maneuvering. It does bleed a lot of speed, it seems, when it turns, which, that can be a good thing and a bad thing depending upon what you're trying to do with it, but that does seem to happen. I mean, it's a really big downside that it does just eat crap randomly from across the map from battleships, but that's the only really big downside I can see with it. Everything else about the ship is pretty darn good in my mind. So again, I think it's absolutely worth your time grinding up to the Jinan, especially again if you are a light cruiser enjoyer. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 35,000 subs, just past 33,900 a few days ago, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. I will be live streaming right here on the channel tonight and on Twitch, so please come join us for that. We will be doing community divs for the last hour. That's where I div up with you guys watching. We go and we have some fun times. Again, guys, hope you guys are having a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to catch y'all in the next one.